Yieldmax ETFs to buy now and hold forever. So the first ETF I want to jump into is Ulti. So why I like Ulti is because in bull markets, small caps and mid caps tend to outperform, and they benefit a lot from lower interest rates. So with the Fed signaling some rate cuts, I think small and mid caps will definitely have a tailwind. And I think some of the holdings are potentially undervalued. The small and mid caps are good for Yieldmax type funds because of their holdings, are high beta and they have so much volatility. It allows Yieldmax to generate those big premiums and give big performance to Ulti. So if we look at E-Trade here on the snapshot, we see their top holding is Reddit. So when I went over here and I looked at Reddit on the chart, let's take a peek. So if we look at Reddit here on the chart, I like this chart because it looks like the MACD is getting ready to cross up. Also, I see the 150, the 100, and the 200-day moving average bunched here real tight together. So I'm looking to see that 100 get on top of the 150 and the 100 get on top of the 200 and just signify that we're in a really strong uptrend. So when I'm looking at a stock like Ulti, I take a look at the holdings charts to give me an idea if that's a good buying opportunity. So the next ETF that I think is a good buy now and hold forever is Babo. And when I'm picking single stocks, I prefer to use Yieldmax ETFs if they're available because dividend investing is the safest way to invest. So what I like to do with my accounts is, similar to Todd Akin's strategy, is I want to get the performance in my portfolio from things like Cornerstone and indexed ETF funds. And then what I use the Yieldmax funds and other income funds for is to get those distributions to generate the income to pay the margin back on the assets I use to get the performance. So basically I'm borrowing money to buy more Cornerstone, and then I have small allocations into funds like Yieldmax and Babo and Misti to generate those big distributions, and that's going to pay that margin debt back. So that's how I'm able to get my performance, my capital gains, my day's gains. But then I'm also generating income to qualify for banks and to get loans and to live that FIRE lifestyle. But I'm also using those Yieldmax funds to pay the margin back. I got an email from that first video I made. A guy reached out to me and he was, curious or, wanted to know why he wasn't seeing big gains in his portfolio by holding a bunch of Ulti. And, it got me to thinking that, well, in my portfolio, if I put all my eggs into Ulti, well, I'm not going to see those capital gains. I'm not going to see those days gains because Ulti is not that type of vehicle. So I just want you guys to be aware that, these things that I am putting my money into, the Yieldmax type funds, is I'm not putting a lot of, eggs in that basket. I'm just getting a good bit of income just to supplement and to pay back the leverage that I have in places like Cornerstone where I'm getting the real performance. So if we take a look at Baba, there's a lot of reasons why I like Baba. Obviously, I'm bullish on the United States 100%, the land of the free. But I like Baba as a hedge against the United States because it's the best of breed of China. So it's a way to get China exposure the best way possible. Alibaba is the Chinese Amazon. And I've seen some pretty interesting news articles about the AI stuff they have coming out. So you get the China exposure, you also get the AI exposure. And I saw this interesting article about their coming out with AI to do healthcare stuff. So it's actually going to do critical care, not just, telehealth. So this is a pretty interesting article if you want to read up on, Alibaba and Tencent's, AI that's going into the medical space. It's pretty interesting. I don't want to sit here and, read this for you guys, but, check out, there's quite a few articles about what's Alibaba's doing with their AI in the medical space. I also like the chart. Let's see here. I like to buy stuff that's at a discount. I like to buy stuff that's way off the old highs. So if we see here on the chart, a couple years ago, it was, sitting up here about 300, just simply speaking, down here at 135, there's an easy double just to get back to where it was a few years ago. And I think the story behind it is leading itself for that to come true. So I like to buy stocks that have good upside potential. And I think Alibaba checks those boxes. And if I want to play Alibaba, I like to play it through Babo, the Yieldmax funds, which is going to give me those big distributions. And the last fund that I would buy now and hold forever is Misti. Everyone's sweetheart here, Misti. Huge distributions. It's a way to get that Bitcoin exposure, but generate income in doing so, which in my opinion is the safest way to invest. So MicroStrategy is super high beta. So that's how Misti's able to get those huge distributions. And it looks interesting right now. The future's looking a little bit uneasy because I saw last week that this week that the S&P denied them entrance into the S&P, and it seems like there's some political things going on there. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but we can speculate. But I do know that MicroStrategy is trading at 2 times the value of the Bitcoin that it holds. So just be aware, that it is, somewhat of a definitely a high beta, but somewhat of a risky investment. But with risk comes reward. So long term, I think Bitcoin is a good place to put your money. I think that the large majority of serious investors agree with that Bitcoin is going to be a big part of the financial future of basically the whole world. So MicroStrategy is a good way to play that. A lot of people are using MicroStrategy as a vehicle to get that Bitcoin exposure. And if I want to play a MicroStrategy just like Babo, when I'm picking single stocks, I prefer to use the Yieldmax version to get those distributions, and that way I'm getting paid, all the time. So I'm using those I'm using those distributions from those names to pay back the margin, to pay back the debt that I took on to buy stuff like Cornerstone that's giving me days gains, also giving me nice healthy dividends dripping down at NAV. Again, that's why I love E-Trade. But I'm not putting a ton of money behind Misti or Babo. I'm just putting a 5-10% in there, and I'm using those distributions to pay back the margin I borrowed, to supercharge the returns, and basically it's using a similar strategy to MicroStrategy's Bitcoin model, where they basically do convertible notes or convertible bonds, and they are essentially taking on debt to buy more Bitcoin, and then as Bitcoin goes up, though that debt converts and they issue shares. So basically that's what we're doing with our approach that we have over there, Unconventional Wealth Ideas, is we're using Cornerstone kind of like our Bitcoin. And as Cornerstone goes up, we're able to see awesome returns from Cornerstone. We're dripping down at the NAV, and we're getting those dividends, and we're getting the capital gains from Cornerstone. But as Cornerstone's growing our account, we're able to buy more income-paying assets like the Yieldmax and the Misti and the Babo and the Ulti, and then those distributions that we're getting from that is paying back the money that we borrow. So we're borrowing money to buy Cornerstone. Cornerstone's going up. We're using the money from Cornerstone going up to buy more Yieldmax funds, and then the Yieldmax funds are paying back the money that we borrowed. So it's really a whole strategy here. It's not just a one hit wonder. This is really a way of life, and that's why Todd has come up with that FIRE lifestyle. We didn't get here overnight. I went on the typical journey of most investors, I would say, and I did it alongside Todd. Met him in college. I started out back into penny stocks. I think a lot of people start out on penny stocks, with the idea, I'm going to buy 1 million shares and it's going to go to $1 and I'm going to get rich. And then from there, I went to day trading. I was chasing the fast money, and then I went to stock picking. And Todd was writing articles for the oil and gas sector. I worked in oil and gas out of college. I was a mechanical engineering student from U of H, and I would drive to these companies and pretend like I was applying, for a job, and I'd be taking pictures and seeing how busy they were. And Todd was writing articles on them. And then from there, we found AMZA, which is basically a pipeline ETF. It's actually an MLP, collection. And that's where he found out about, being able to get dividends, and also there's tax benefits to MLPs and dividends. That's a whole nother story there. He could probably write an e-guide about that. But that's what gave us the introduction to dividend investing. And then I was like the first one that took the plunge into margin. So this is a strategy that me and Todd came up with over the last 15 years, and that's how we've basically honed this into what you see today. So if you have any more questions, Todd, like I said, has those awesome e-guides over at his website, and then also watch his videos. He's like a savant, dude. He's like, he's probably on the spectrum a little bit like Elon Musk, but he's fully focused on investing. So I've put my whole faith behind him since the day I met him, more or less. And he's never been wrong. So we've taken some bumps and bruises, but I stand by Todd. I'm amazed at the community he's built over here with the Discord, and getting to know you guys and all the love I got on my first video. That's awesome. I'm a little bit shy. Todd's not shy, so he's been pushing me to get to do this because I do have a lot of experience like him, and I look forward to sharing that with you guys more and more. So please like, comment, subscribe, share this around. Go spam Todd's comments if you think that you'd be interested in picking up some fire lifestyle merch or unconventional wealth shirts or something like that. Let's get Todd fired up about it, because I want to wear some of that stuff around Florida, and then get people onto it, because that's what I love about what Todd's doing is he's not just selling stuff like a lot of YouTubers and people out there. He's changing people's lives. I look in the Discord about people that are able to quit their job. It's really moving, and that's what I want to be a part of, and that's why I am over here, because you guys get me excited to get more people excited. So thank you guys, and I look forward to making the next video and seeing y'all in the Discord and interacting with you guys in the comments.